Welcome on Broken English podcast.
I love the name. However, my one issue is that the term broken has negative connotations.
For first 5 years of your wrestling career, you didn't make any money.
Yes, so that's very true. Okay, back in 2005, the only way to get people to your show is to staple the flyers to telephone poles and hope that they show up.
Do you feel complete in your life and want to achieve more?
I am extremely ambitious and I want to have an empire of pro wrestling. I want my own kingdom.
You have already made your mind that you're not going to have any kids.
Kids is an at least 18-year commitment.
What's the best piece of advice you ever get?
The best piece of advice that I can give people is break up a lot.
Mike Bailey!
Now, Bailey with the rookie Kazarian, a classic for the
Bully Ray passed up a golden opportunity.
full heads up here. Oh, man.
Lights.
Shooting star. No, please, don't do it. No!
Bodies everywhere as the chant of OTT rings out.
ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਜੀ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ। ਮੈਂ ਹਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਆਪਣਾ ਇੰਟਰਨੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਰੈਸਲਰ ਭੁਪਿੰਦਰ ਗੁੱਜਰ। ਦੋਸਤੋ, ਜੋ ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਗੈਸਟ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਇੱਕ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਮੰਝੇ ਹੋਏ ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਰੈਸਲਰ ਨੇ, ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਚੰਗੇ ਇਨਸਾਨ ਨੇ। ਤੇ ਦੋਸਤੋ, ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਇੰਟਰਸਟਿੰਗ ਗੱਲ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਰੈਸਲਿੰਗ ਦੀ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ 5 ਸਾਲ ਤੱਕ ਤਾਂ ਕੋਈ ਪੇ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਲਿੱਤੀ। ਜਿਹੜਾ ਪਹਿਲਾ ਚੈੱਕ ਆਇਆ ਵੀ $5 ਦਾ। ਐਂਡ ਉਹ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਅੱਜ AEW ਰੈਸਲਿੰਗ ਦੇ ਸੁਪਰਸਟਾਰ ਨੇ। TNA ਰੈਸਲਿੰਗ ਦੀ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਤੂਤੀ ਬੋਲਦੀ ਸੀਗੀ ਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਇਹ ਆਏ ਨੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਆਪਣੀ ਲਾਈਫ ਦਾ ਐਕਸਪੀਰੀਅੰਸ ਸ਼ੇਅਰ ਕਰਨ। ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਟਾਈਮ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੈਂਦਾ, ਸਿੱਧਾ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ। The one of the best professional wrestler, Speedball, Mike Bailey. Thank you so much for coming and thank you for making this happen. Speedball, welcome on my podcast. Welcome on Broken English podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I love the name. I think broken English. So broken English is important. However, my one issue is that the term broken has negative connotations.
Okay.
And one thing that I learned from traveling around the world for pro wrestling is that the English that you hear in movies, on television,
Right.
in pro wrestling is not the one correct English. And I think English with an Indian accent is beautiful. English with a Singaporean accent is beautiful. English with a French Canadian accent doesn't mean your English is bad. It just means you have an accent, and that's a good thing.
Right.
So I'm very happy that you're running with broken English as a positive, and I hope that you can turn that into a good thing.
Yeah, thank you. You just need to understand what other person is trying to say. And if you can understand that, I think you have good enough English to communicate.
Right? But I think so too. But English has many dialects. I mean, if you go to Scotland, for example, if you talk to an old Scottish person, for example, usually a taxi driver, usually the taxi drivers has the strongest accents, right?
Right.
English is their first language. They speak English. It's Scottish English, and you won't be able to understand a word they're saying, but their English is perfect
Right.
for where they are.
Right. And I heard somewhere that English is not your first language, but you are so fluent. Your accent is so great. Like, how you kind of came up with that accent?
So, I mean, I couldn't speak English I couldn't speak English fluently. Like I can hold a conversation or know all the words I wanted to say until I was like 12 or 13. I grew up in Quebec. I grew up right here in Laval. I grew up literally the house where I was born and raised is 10 minutes away from the building in which we're wrestling today.
We are sitting in your hometown.
Yeah.
And so when you grew up, you were speaking which
French household. My mom speaks English, but not super well and with a very strong accent. My father spoke English. So I remember playing Final Fantasy VII, right? Which is a JRPG game with a lot of dialogue, a lot of text. It's very hard to play the game if you don't understand what they're saying. And having to continuously bring my dad to be like, what does it say here? What does it say right here? So that he could translate for me and I'd be able to play the game.
Okay, and after that you start speaking English when you go to the high school, right? Like
Right.
more.
Pretty much. So when I was 11 and I started Taekwondo, the Taekwondo school was bilingual,
Okay.
right? As are a lot of like businesses. So like
Mhm.
the classes were half French, half English.
Fre-
So I was speaking English in a practical way a lot more, like having conversations and talking about something. I've always heard it through professional wrestling,
Right.
and that was always kind of like pro wrestling and video games were the English that I listened to and wanted to understand.
No, you're right. I would say my English is not the perfect, but I think I can. It's became better with time just because of professional wrestling, talking about the sports, talking about the matches, the psychology of the matches. Speedball, you said you did taekwondo. You started taekwondo at 11 years old. How did you fell in love with professional wrestling?
So professional wrestling came way before Taekwondo. Professional wrestling was I saw it on TV, and I have two older brothers and an older sister, but specifically one of my older brothers who wrestled for like 10 years as well. We decided as soon as we saw it on TV, oh, this is what we're gonna do. And we just took our mattresses off our beds and started giving each other suplexes and doing the moves that we saw on TV instantly. And then randomly, when I was 10 or 11, I can't remember, but I had a friend who just joined a Taekwondo school that was near my house.
Okay.
And he was like, do you want to come try out a class? I had no interest in martial arts beyond that. I wasn't like a fan or, I played Mortal Kombat and that was all I knew about martial arts and what I saw in pro wrestling. But I just went, tried a class, and I was like, oh, when I start pro wrestling when I'm older, this is going to be really useful.
Right.
And so I started Taekwondo basically for pro wrestling. And then it was, of course, several years before I was able to start training for pro wrestling. And Taekwondo was my real focus in between those years. Even when I started pro wrestling, which was at around 15 years old, I was already a black belt in Taekwondo. And I kept doing Taekwondo tournaments and competition until I was just about 24 years old, I think. So I was doing both for a while.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
And which one you loved more when you were doing both together?
I was more into Taekwondo. It took up a lot more of my time.
Mm-hmm.
I would train a lot. I had access to training, and I was way deeper into it. I was also competing at a relatively high level.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas for pro wrestling, I started again. I grew up here, so I started in Quebec
Okay.
in 2005, and we're talking pre-social media. We're talking, you can't even advertise your wrestling show on Facebook, right? So if you,
Wow.
again, I don't know how familiar your audience is with the history of wrestling in America, right?
Mhm.
But just to do a quick recap, wrestling before 1990 was broken up into individual promotions all across America.
Right.
And in, the late 80s, early 90s, there was one promotion that bought out all the other promotions and had a monopoly on pro wrestling.
Mhm.
And so pro wrestling in Quebec, being the fact that it's not in America, it's from Canada, so it's across the border, and it needs to be presented in a different language to be successful here,
Mhm.
really died down.
Mm.
Historically, wrestling in Quebec was red hot in the 80s. But in the 90s, when there was only one promotion that was handling North America, Quebec wrestling really died down. So it was really difficult for independent promotions to build up a name.
Mhm.
And until, at least Facebook started,
Okay.
and you could advertise your show on Facebook, things didn't really pick up.
Right.
I started in 2005, and it was in 2006,
Mhm.
I think there was a promotion in Quebec City that brought in Christopher Daniels to wrestle Kevin Steen, now Owens. And that kind of helped create a bridge. And then Kevin and El Generico were able to start taking bookings all around the world independently. But that was a completely new thing.
Right. Breaking that stereotype, going all over, and it helps other wrestlers to kind of motivate or give them a kind of open mindset that
Yes.
you can go everywhere and you can get more. Oh, you can learn something new.
Right. And as someone who is smaller, right, then especially the wrestlers you saw on TV in the 90s were all
Huge.
over 250 pounds,
Yeah.
just gassed up to the gills, just inflated. And I'm a normal sized human being. So I didn't, didn't know that it would be possible for me to wrestle on television. And it wasn't at the time, it wasn't until wrestling changed. So I had all the possibility to be successful in Taekwondo, but in pro wrestling, it didn't feel, even though I wanted to, it didn't feel like I could reach the,
Heights.
elite world level that I am now.
I want to ask you, like, has it ever happened that you told someone that I'm professional wrestler and they're like, oh, really? Uh, Ever happened to you? Because, sometimes people, in their mind, there is an image of professional wrestlers, big people, 6 feet plus, huge guys. Ever happened to you?
It's funny, it still does all the time, and it always will. Because again, I think one of the biggest problems with professional wrestling is that for a lot of people who watch it like stopped in 1994. They have this mental image of what pro wrestling was in the early 90s, when it was only one thing, one type of person doing it, one style of wrestling, because there was a monopoly in pro wrestling. There was one man who decided what pro wrestling looked like. Whereas now pro wrestling is rich, it's diverse, it's meant to reflect all the cultures and genders and peoples all around the world, and let those people, tell their story in the ring. And I think for some reason, there's still a lot of work to be done, but people fail to understand that.
Before I ask you about wrestling more, I want to know, like, you are a person which is super nice to every single person, every single individual. I can talk about from my experience, because when I got into professional wrestling, we worked with TNA for 3 years. When I was there for 3 years, you were there for more than me. And I remember, like, as the new guy, you talk to me politely, you explain me, we talk about the psychology of the matches. Everybody know you, who Speedball is, and your wrestling ability is amazing. How you are still able to stay that, to be that person?
So I think honestly, martial arts helped a lot in learning respect. And like one of the formative memories that I have from starting Taekwondo is being a like green belt, like almost a year in maybe. And then there was this black belt.
Okay.
And in sparring, I would just demolish him. I would just destroy him. And I asked my coach, why is he a black belt and I'm a green belt and I can just whoop his ass? And his answer was, because it's not about how skilled you are, it's about how skilled you become. Right? So he was not physically gifted or athletic, but he worked as hard as a person should to obtain a black belt. So given that, he did deserve his black belt. And I think that's true of all people. I think that's especially true in professional wrestling. I think you can never like judge a person by their status in pro wrestling, because again, there's a lot more that comes into play than just skill when it comes to deciding who becomes successful and who doesn't.
Right, because I see like a lot of people, I don't want to say they are not kind, but they take their own time. They are not opening up right away, which is right. Everybody have their own way of talking to people or start the conversation. But you are super nice even on the day one, without even knowing me.
So this is another thing that I've come to realize as I've progressed in my career with pro wrestling, right? Now I have an excellent reputation as a professional wrestler. I am very highly ranked in the very subjective
100%.
rankings of pro wrestling, but I am very highly regarded, right? I command respect. When I enter a locker room, the wrestlers know who I am. And it's still fucking terrifying. It's still miserable. It still takes up so much energy to go shake hands with everyone, say hi, have people introduce themselves, go ask for simple things. And that it's always been difficult for me. That's just who I am. I don't know if it's my brain. I don't have any official diagnostic, but social interactions are difficult and exhausting. And especially in pro wrestling, when you hear a lot of the stories of this guy didn't shake my hand, so when he was in the bathroom, I punched him in the back of the head, from old wrestlers and things like that. There's still this mentality that happens in pro wrestling where you are judged by every single interaction. And that kind of makes the experience shitty for everyone. So the fact that I can do my part by doing something as simple as being nice to everyone, I will happily do so.
And now people have more expectations with you.
Yeah, now I have to be nice. No, but I have also found that given how difficult social interactions are, if I smile and I'm polite, when I need to be left alone and just want to kind of just sit and be inside of myself for a few minutes, I can do that.
Back to professional wrestling days. I heard somewhere that for first 5 years of your wrestling career, you didn't charge or you didn't make any money.
Yes, so that's very true. And when I say that, and when people hear that, the I don't remember which interview I did. I think it was maybe Chris Jericho's podcast, but when I did his
Probably,
podcast,
yeah.
and I talked about that, the comments were like, "Well, this idiot doesn't understand business. He doesn't know how wrestling works." But what you have to understand is that once again, Quebec in 2005, the only way to get people to your show is to staple the flyers to telephone poles and hope that they show up.
Right.
No, it's not like promoters were getting rich off of my back.
Mhm.
No one was making money. Everyone that was wrestling in Quebec until, things started going up a little bit, and still now wrestling in Canada and wrestling in a lot of like countries where the pro wrestling scene is still developing, 99% of the wrestlers do it because they love it and it does not make a significant impact on their finances.
Right. How many promotions were there back then
1 million.
in Quebec?
Yes, hundreds. They would open and close and change their names. And there was an endless cycle of promotions opening and closing. And I would rarely wrestle for the same promotion twice. I started with a promotion called MWF that is now closed. My older brother started training at IWS, which still runs to this day, still runs very big shows in Montreal, and is one of the biggest independent promotions in Canada, still to this day. But for the most part, a lot of the promotions I wrestled were like, again, Quebec is very big. I don't know if people understand just how big it is, but basically, if you can drive, Montreal is at the American border on the south, right? And you can drive up to 8 hours north, and there's still town. You're still in Quebec. And
Okay.
there is wrestling here and there all across those 8 hours. So, yeah. But again, given the financial difficulties of running a wrestling show in the early 2000s, promotions would open and close all the time.
Mm-hmm. By just talking to you, it's not related to this topic, but I want to ask, you are very calm and you are a very positive person. Do you have any kind of meditation schedule you follow?
No.
Are you
no,
spiritual? Live
I
in
am
God?
not. I am not spiritual at all. I am wildly practical to a fault.
Mm-hmm.
I am a very mindful individual. So the problem with all these terms is that I feel like someone wrote a book about it and cultivated the term. Like I'm sure there's an official religion of mindfulness that exists somewhere. But when I say I'm mindful, I think to take your question and give you an even deeper detour in return, I think about driving a lot, right? And people drive to and from work 30 minutes every day. And driving is the one thing that people are able to do for an hour each day and never be good at it. People do a lot of things all the time, and if you don't care, if you just check out
Mm-hmm.
and listen to music and don't focus about what you're doing, you're not going to be good at it. But think about it. If you practice the piano an hour a day, every single day for the rest of your life, you'd think you'd end up being pretty good at the piano, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the same doesn't apply to driving because people are not mindful about it. I think by just staying focused and being conscious about getting better at every aspect of your life, I think that makes a big difference. And I think I approach calm and my emotions the same way, not trying to fight or repress anything, just trying to accept how I feel and figure out why I'm feeling this way and learn how I can deal with it.
Do you feel complete in your life? Sometimes like even I'm doing whatever I can. I like to control whatever I can, and I feel like I'm super happy in my life. And what about you? Do you want to achieve more or?
Yeah, I mean, yes, I am extremely ambitious and there is a lot more I want to do. I've always said that I was going to be a millionaire. And now that it's possible that I could become a millionaire, $1 million is no longer a lot of money. So like, what's the point? But inflation. But yeah, no, there's so much I want to do. And I think I'm wise enough to be able to parse out like doing my best in short periods of time, but also having very high goals and expectations for what I'm going to do ultimately in my career, right? Like pro wrestling is my main thing now. And I want to change the pro wrestling landscape. And I feel like in my time, I know that already I have a lot more to do in pro wrestling, but what I've done has already been influential, right? I've traveled the world, I've given seminars, I have taught a lot of people, I have made a lot of other pro wrestlers very successful by sharing my methods with them, and that's a good thing. But I still think I have so much more to do with that. I mean, my ultimate goal for pro wrestling is to have an empire of pro wrestling. I want my own kingdom. I want a giant warehouse where I run shows, have a gym, have a room for content creation. And I want that to have several other locations, all run by like-minded people all over the world. And that's what I'm going to try to do. It might not happen. There's a very strong chance that I don't get there, but I will try.
No, 100% you have to try. But if, sometimes you set your expectations too high and it never fulfilled, but then people feel bad and they never get out of that zone and they feel sad and they are miserable in their life. I would say just have never have like super high expectations, but do your best, whatever you wanted to do in your life.
Right. I think if you're doing your best in the short term, but like the long term, 10 years down the line, you can't know where you're going to be. Right. You can make a plan to try and get there.
Right.
And if you follow the plan, even if you don't get there, then you'll at least be better. You'll still be better off in your life. You'll still have done your best within that time period. Right. I'm talking about, I'm 34 years old. I'm not going to have children. I'm only going to have myself and my career, and I intend to focus on that until I am, I want to say 90, but I think now with new medical technology, I could live up to 120.
Maybe.
That's my plan. That's what I'd like to do.
So you have already made your mind that you're not going to have any kid?
Mhm.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yep.
Like, for me, I thought maybe you are a person who like to have a lot of kids. That's my view. I thought maybe you're going to have like a lot of kids. You like to travel, but
I don't think I don't know. If I was...
do you think it's going to change with moving forward?
No, I don't think so. I think I'm
Okay.
pretty set. I think if I had lived a life where I am settled and staying in one place and had been, having the same job for the last 10 years, but I've literally been moving around. I've not been in one place longer than after signing with TNA and getting my US visa and starting in the US. That's when I've been
You
living
moved
in
to-
the same place for the last 3 years, and before that, I had been constantly traveling. I basically lived out of a suitcase all around the world for like 5 years, and I don't ever want to stop traveling. I don't ever want to have to adapt my schedule to, someone else's. And kids is an at least 18-year commitment,
Oh yeah, that's a long time commitment.
right? So no,
Yeah.
I have a thing that I want to do.
Right. You have traveled all over the world in
Mhm.
professional wrestling. Which is your favorite country? Like where you want to go back and want to wrestle in future?
So this is a very difficult question to answer because it's hard to say that I have a favorite place for pro wrestling because every place is unique. Every place has a different culture and presents different challenges as a pro wrestler. I love Japan. I loved wrestling in Japan because they have a very rich culture of professional wrestling and they take it very seriously, right? I also love Mexico because it's the complete opposite of Japan.
Okay.
Wrestling in Mexico, it's a party.
Right.
The wrestling is in town. Everyone is going to go to the show, whether they're a fan of pro wrestling or not. They're just going to go to have a good time and enjoy it. So
Right.
it's completely different, right? And then America is somewhere in the middle. And like those are probably the places, like America and Japan are the places I've wrestled the most. Europe as well, did a lot of wrestling in Europe. But one of my favorite things to do with professional wrestling is to go to places where the professional wrestling scene is just starting out and developing and people aren't as familiar with it because it takes a lot of courage to grow a promotion for something as strange to people who aren't familiar with it as professional wrestling. One of my favorite experiences that I had while traveling was when I went to Singapore for a promotion called Grapple Max,
Okay.
right? And they were literally just starting pro wrestling as a concept in Singapore. They didn't have a ring. The show was on mats.
Mhm.
And all the wrestlers were people that they had trained. The trainer, Greg, who had went to Japan and trained with Michinoku Pro and was bringing wrestling back as a concept to Singapore with the help of like Emi Sakura and Minoru Suzuki and a bunch of really, really good people. But they were literally starting wrestling in Singapore and no one was familiar with
So
it.
that was first big promotion, or was that literally the first promotion they were starting in Singapore?
I think there was another promotion in Singapore, but in a completely different part of the country, completely unrelated.
Okay, right. And you, before signing your big contract, you were wrestling for, you said, 10 years. Was all most of the matches was in Canada because you couldn't cross the border, right?
I
Oh,
couldn't. I did
okay.
wrestle some matches in the United States, which resulted in me being banned from the US for 5 years.
You got banned for 5 years?
Yep. Couldn't
Oh,
enter
I
the
heard that, but I wasn't sure.
Mhm.
And what happened there?
They just stopped me at the border, didn't have the proper paperwork, and the US is very strict
Okay.
with that stuff. So I was not able to enter the US for 5 years. And this was, at a time where my career was heading in a direction where it was looking like that I was going to sign with one of the major American companies at the time,
Okay.
right? They were heavily scouting the promotions for which I was working. So that happened. And then I was like, okay, I can't go to America, but I started wrestling 10 years ago when I couldn't make any money. I'm doing this because I love it. So I'm
Right.
going to keep doing this because I love it. So that's when I started going to Japan and I worked with DDT,
Mm-hmm.
which is a promotion in Japan known for doing, crazy things and big characters for like 5 years. I by the time I got stopped at the U.S. border, I had already gone to Mexico. I had already wrestled in Europe a little bit. I had already made enough connections that I was able to keep that momentum going for the next 5 years until I was able to return to the U.S. And that's when I started working with TNA.
I know you were traveling for 10 years, but early days, do you used to reach out to the promoters by yourself? What was your best, what was your game to reach out and, get them more and more bookings for yourself?
It was very different back again. Wrestling was a lot smaller, a lot less wrestlers. I think the most success I had was just going to shows.
Just show up.
Just show up, and by reputation, people would go, "Oh, this guy is really good." I think nowadays that's a little bit harder. You have to have a little bit more of a calculated approach and message promoters a lot more, and just showing up wouldn't work as well. But literally just showing up and being ready to go. I had my brother, I had friends, and we were always just, again, we were not expecting to be paid, and we just went to the show with our costumes. Hey, we want to help you with the ring. And if you have an extra match on your show, there's 4 of us. We're all good wrestlers. These guys all know us because we've worked before. So if you want to give us a match, that'd be great. If not, no worries.
Right.
And then we'd do a match, and the match would be good, so we'd get booked again.
Yeah. Professional wrestling is growing in India. And
Mhm.
a lot of people know about wrestling, but people who do not know the concept of professional wrestling, and some people say it's fake. To make them understand about professional wrestling, what's your best way to teach them about pro wrestling?
I wish people could see the entire process that goes behind making a professional wrestling match. I think it's a shame because what you see happen in the ring is only the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
What happens before that is a lot more interesting. I would like to show the world the entire process of I arrive, I fly in, I land at 2 p.m. I take an Uber to the show. I warm up. My opponent arrives. He doesn't speak French or English. He only speaks Japanese. We've never met. We're going to talk for 20 minutes in broken English
Right.
using wrestling terms. Then we're going to separate. We're going to get ready. We're going to meet back in the ring and present a flawless fight choreography that has to last 20 minutes, look good from all angles, tell a very specific story without talking or rehearsing or doing any takes, right?
Yes. It's just one take.
It's just one take. Half of it is improvised. Half of it is stuff that you can do with another person. But I think the most difficult and important part of pro wrestling is making the choices, deciding what will go into the match, choosing what you're going to do, right? Because people who aren't familiar with pro wrestling, I think, imagine it one of two ways. Either the wrestlers just kind of go out there and do a dance and they just pretend to fight and there's no like thought behind it, that's it. Or that everything is choreographed and rehearsed like a movie, right? But it's not. The beauty of wrestling and what makes it so interesting is that it's portable. You have to be able to do a different match 3-4 times a week that needs to be unique every single time. And you have to be able to do stunts where you look like you end your life and then do them again the next day and again the next day and so on.
And I think it's all about the opportunities on the show too. Like if I talk about myself, if I'm working with any big company and if I'm not getting the right opportunity and not getting the chance to show what I can do, I'm never going to improve, or I cannot even show what I'm capable of. So a lot of people, I get a lot of text or messages on Instagram. Hey bro, you need to go and work with this company, you need to have a match against this guy, that guy. I was like, that's not in my control. I can only perform the whatever I get, the directions I get from the office.
Yes.
And
That's a big thing as well. Professional wrestling is about, you're part of a show, right? It's not your own show. You don't get to decide what you do. You're given a situation and your job as a pro wrestler is to make the most out of that situation. Right. In pro wrestling, if you're a 7-foot tall guy and you're told you have to lose to this 80-pound girl, right? If you go, no, I can't do that. That doesn't make sense. You're a bad pro wrestler. What a good pro wrestler needs to do is figure out how they can use pro wrestling to make it make sense to the audience. And there's always a way, there's always a possibility. And that's where the skill part of pro wrestling comes into play. It's difficult. You have to make things work. Tonight, I have a match with 5 other people, right? And I have to make sure that everyone in this match looks strong, looks good. The match is exciting. No one gets hurt. Nothing gets messed up. And that requires a ton of skill.
Right. I totally agree with you. And that's why I tell people like, hey, I'm going to do my best, whatever the opportunities I get. And by traveling more in independent scene now, I have a little bit more leverage where I can do what I wanted to do and basically to entertain people and to show people what basically I can do. Speedball, what was the reaction when you penned down your first contract?
My first contract, which was
Yes.
with TNA,
With TNA, okay.
which that was I think I worked very hard in the 5 years that I couldn't come to the United States to build up my name, right? And try to get the anticipation. So when I signed with TNA, I think a lot of people were very excited. Or not a lot of people.
Did you see that coming?
Yes, because I had been working for it very hard. I wanted it to happen. I
You and
literally
Josh Alexander, you guys both worked for years.
We
with
did.
him.
He's another great example of how hard you have to work as a Canadian or just as someone outside of the US to be, successful in pro wrestling. And so I had been working for those 5 years specifically with a strategy in mind on when I will be able to come back to the US and how to make the biggest impact, no pun intended, when I did get back to the US. And I think I was very well received, and it had been, it was nice that people within the US didn't forget about me and were still happy to see me come back and perform.
There's more opportunities in professional wrestling in States as compared to Canada, right?
Yes, 1000%. Pro wrestling kind of follows the density of population, right? Density of population and the culture behind pro wrestling kind of makes a scene. And the US is very dense. There's a lot of people. So there is no place in the world where it's as easy to make money as a professional wrestler as the United States. Right. Japan and Mexico are kind of close behind. Mexico, I think it's harder just because of the conditions of the country economically, right? Japan pro wrestling is a lot more closed off. It's less accessible than in the United States. But yeah, the United States, especially as an independent wrestler, is the best country to be.
Yeah, and let's talk about your matches. Your wrestling psychology is next level and totally makes sense. I'm pretty sure that comes up with time, the more matches you do. Do you consider, because I heard somewhere you said you are over planner. Do
Mhm.
you really consider yourself over planner?
No, because I think it's the right amount of planning. I think
Okay.
I'm an over planner in a lot of ways, but for pro wrestling,
Mhm.
again, especially in a world like independent wrestling where there's so much that you can't control, so you have to do your best. I think that that's necessary. But I think, again, back to driving and mindfulness, I think I've always been teaching pro wrestling, right? I was teaching Taekwondo before I started pro wrestling, and I didn't really have a teacher when I started. It was kind of me, my brother, and my friends all teaching each other.
Okay.
So where a lot of very good professional wrestlers are able to have like consistently excellent matches,
Mhm.
I don't think they're able to teach people how to have those great matches because they've never had to. You really have to work hard, and I did my whole career on how to like break things down
Mhm.
so that I could replicate them and pass them on to other people. And I think the key to my success as a professional wrestler has been that I've had to try so hard to not only find things that work
Mhm.
in the ring, that get the audience going, that achieve the right result, that are pleasant for my opponent to work with,
Mhm.
but figure out why those things work.
Mm.
And then if I know that it works and figure out why it works, then I'm able to replicate it
Mhm.
and pass it on to other people and give these things names, which I think is important. I think like having vocabulary in professional wrestling is super important, right? Uh, in pro wrestling, the parts of your match all have names,
Mhm.
right? Uh, just like a movie,
Right.
right? And I don't know in Quebec when you learn like how to write a story, right? There's always the introduction, and then you learn to break that story down into different parts.
So maybe intro, paragraph 1, paragraph 2, we're on the same
Introduction,
page.
élément déclencheur, péripétie, dénouement, conclusion.
Okay.
Those are the words in French. I think that's, but you know, regardless, when you watch movies, right? There's 3 acts, and all of those acts follow a certain structure. If you watch all the Marvel movies, they all kind of follow the same
Right. There's
structure.
just some kind of structure in there.
Right. Pro wrestling, because it's portable, because in order to be a good pro wrestler, you need to be able to put a match together in 15 minutes. You need to have words for what goal every minute or two of that match will entail,
Mhm.
right? For example, the shine is where you're trying to build up the audience's expectations for what one of the people in the match is going to do before you take those away and go to the heat, which is where the person that the audience is expecting to see action from is being beaten down. And then we're building that anticipation, and then we go to the comeback, right? So I think there are words that were developed in like the 90s that people still use now, and those are good, except that the audience's expectations has grown and matches now are a lot more complicated. And a lot of very good pro wrestlers don't have words for the last half of their match,
Right.
where things get even more important and even more complicated, but
Right.
they should. And I think in pro wrestling, I have worked very hard to develop new words
Mhm.
to represent new parts of the match that are important now and that like we've discovered and developed.
Mhm. Did you build any names for that?
So I think the one that I've used the most is active break,
That's new.
right? So which goes into how to build a false finish. I also think falsy versus near fall as a discussion is one I refer to a lot, right? Because everything that is bad about independent pro wrestling is because someone took something from TV without understanding it,
Right.
right? And how do you build a finisher on television is you win a match with a move, right? And that's how you build a false finish is you hit that same move,
Mhm.
except the person you beat, this time they're able to kick out. But you can't do that in independent wrestling
Mhm.
because the audience is presumably seeing you for the first time, or
Right.
at least a huge majority of the audience is seeing you for the first time.
Right.
So in order to build a false finish, you have to tease it.
Mhm.
But then also, so the notion of progression as well, to go into that, which are all topics that I'm very interested in.
Mhm.
Every time you do something in pro wrestling, it creates expectations for what the audience is going to see. If I go on the top rope, do a double backflip and land on the guy, the audience is going to go crazy.
Right.
Then I go back on the top rope and I just fall on him. the audience is going to be disappointed, right?
Right.
But going in and just following on a guy, if I haven't done the cooler thing first, is
Yeah.
important. Now, the same thing happens for the chapters of your match, right? Every match is divided into parts. Those parts have to grow in importance and in length every single time. But you can't go one speed. It can't be all stop and go, stop and go, stop and go, because if you stop and go, it puts a very low ceiling
Right.
on how long you'll be able to go.
Mhm.
So you need to balance it by starting slowly and then accelerating. And if you, again, we talked about the comeback, right? Build expectations for you, take them away, the match slows down. We bring the action back. Now we both have enough damage so that it looks like the match could end at any moment. Now that's when we're going to have to start building in a progressive manner where the spots get progressively bigger,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
In order to tell those stories, I want to make the audience believe that I'm going to win with a figure 4 leg lock.
Mhm.
So what I have to do first is show the audience, this is the move that I do. Here's what happens. I grab the leg, then I spin around, right?
Right.
But then the spot has to also be longer than what we did before. So I'm going to have to tease the move, show it to the audience. Then I'm going to have to progressively accelerate into a sequence of action that builds up to drama higher than it was before, and then finally get to the moves. And that's how I'm going to get the audience to really believe that the move is going to end the match.
Right.
Right? So that's the active break that leads to the high spot, or elevator that leads to the falsie, which is distinct from a near fall, because within that elevator, if I give you a move that I haven't told the story of during the match, if I just give you a brainbuster for a 2 count,
Mm.
the audience might believe, some of the audience might believe that it's a finish,
Mhm.
but I haven't done everything I could to make them believe, right? So that's
Right.
the distinction between
The
a near
unexpect-
fall and a false finish.
Yeah, the unexpectations during this part of the match is play the real game, because now they're gonna be like, oh, match is going to be over, but then an other guy kick out, and then they're like, oh, what's next now? Because you had already done like so many cool moves,
Yes.
and
And that's the progression, is the building of the anticipation. And that's where, so things like an active break, again, on TV, it's a lot more, a lot of the wrestling you see on TV is a lot more produced. There's a referee with an earpiece that is telling the wrestlers, okay, now they have the cameras on the audience, now the cameras on the commentators, now we're in replay, now go. And then you're able to wrestle.
Right.
But most pro wrestlers don't have access to that level of production.
Mhm.
So it's just the wrestlers and the ring. So you have to keep the crowd entertained while still
Right.
building the tension and not sprinting.
This is so amazing that a professional wrestler has to take care of every single aspect in the match. The camera is not on him or playing the replay, then they are taking their own time, killing the time, and then doing the move when, let's say, double dives. If a dive on the other side and dive on the other side of the ring, waiting for that dive to happen, and then a couple of seconds, a milliseconds break, and then a dive. So the camera can catch both dives. That takes time. That's definitely gonna come with experience.
It takes time. It took me 20 years to develop the skill set that I have as a pro wrestler today, that I'm wrestling for All Elite Wrestling, which is the second biggest, I believe the biggest
Yeah.
pro wrestling promotion in the entire world. And that's I think the biggest challenge for pro wrestling is getting people to understand just how difficult it is, and how much care there is, and how much talent and work and passion there is behind what you see in the ring. And that if you just, grabbed a person off the street and threw them in the ring, it wouldn't look like that.
Right. Take years to be a pro wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
And Speedball, is there any one match specifically who changed things in your life and made you feel that, oh, I'm at a next level right now? I'm talking because I remember I had one match with Josh Alexander years ago in London, and I supposed to as a good guy, but then Josh shows up, and then Josh came out. Definitely people gonna cheer for him and gonna boo me. And then Josh in ring, and he's like, okay, just listen to me. So we changed the whole match. We didn't did whatever we planned. I just listened him, and that was a great experience of my life. And having a good match, he was happy after the match. And then that made me realize that, oh, now I can move to the next level. You had any experience like that?
There's been a lot of those. One that I can remember specifically is my match in PWG
Okay.
in 2016. This was in California before I got banned from the US, but I wrestled Kenny Omega,
Okay.
who is one of the best
One of the
wrestlers in the
best.
world, if not the best wrestler in the world, who now also works for AEW. We got to have a match recently at AEW Dynasty in Philadelphia. It was me, him, and Ricochet in a three-way, which is one of my favorite matches of all time. But he and I wrestled 10 years before that in a singles match.
Wow.
And the way his mind worked was just amazing. The way he approached the match and wanted to make everything feel different from the rest of the show, I think was super interesting in how like calculated he was. And then Kenny Omega also is another Canadian who did some wrestling in the US and did not like what he did or what happened or what the scene was. So he was like, I want to go elsewhere. And he went to DDT, which is the same promotion in Japan, where I went to. And I remember going to DDT and seeing how the locker room operates and how the wrestlers approach professional wrestling and clicking, okay, this is why Kenny Omega did the match the way he did. And then slowly figuring it out as I was over there.
Right. And what about AEW? How's your experience working with them, and how different is AEW as compared to TNA?
So it's a lot bigger.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot bigger. I'm having the biggest match of my career. I honestly did not expect when I started with AEW
Mm-hmm.
for the audience to be as aware of me as they are, but the response has been incredible.
They're gonna know you. You are everywhere in state, so there's no way.
Yes, but I am so used to people not knowing who I am,
Mm-hmm.
right? That I wasn't expecting it. And also, it's a huge audience
Mm.
that really pays attention to the wrestling and follows the stories and works hard to learn everything about the performers and understand the show they're seeing. And that's extremely rewarding as a performer to wrestle in front of an audience who cares so much. So yeah, it's been amazing.
And now you started as singles there, but now you and Jet Speed is a team now. Kevin Knight and you, a great tag team. And was it office idea or was it your idea? And my second question is, do you prefer going as a tag team or a singles?
So I love doing both.
Okay.
I want to be good at everything in pro wrestling, again, because my ultimate goal is to be able to teach and pass it on. So I want to be in a successful tag team so that I can pass that along. I want to be a successful singles wrestler so that I can pass that along. But no, me and Kevin Knight were just put together in a tag team. And in America,
Mhm.
for some reason, people complain when like people just get like put together in a tag team match. But in DDT, in Japan, that is the norm.
Mhm.
There's literally 1 or 2 singles matches on the show. Everything else is tags or 6-man tags. So you're going to have to work with partners that you've never teamed with. So a skill that I developed is how to make me and some other guy I possibly have never met
Right.
look like an actual good team.
Maybe me and you sometimes, but it's gonna be good. I know that.
Well, we're wrestling each other today, so we're not able to do much of that. But I had a tag partner in Japan where it was the same thing. We were just thrown together in a 4-on-4 match,
Mhm.
and we did a like from the same corner, holding each other, doing a moonsault together. And
Right.
everyone else. And the boss, the president of DDT, was in the match, and he was like, "Yep, you guys are a team now." That move was so cool. And kind of the same thing happened with Kevin Knight. We were just put together in a random tag team.
I saw that, not the match, but a clip. Was that your idea? Because that was a like vicious move. That's a dangerous move, doing the backflip and both at the same time. It need to be perfect.
So the trick is to not have, or at least the trick is for me to be good with a tag team partner, is to not be like, hey, you're going to do this thing today, but to be like, you already do this, so we're going to do it together. And he was a guy who also did a lot of flips from the top rope to the outside of the ring. He did a lot of moonsaults like that. He was very athletic in that way. So it would be something that kind of we both do, so it would make sense for us to do it together, if that makes sense. But the same thing happened with Kevin Knight in AEW,
Mhm.
and our first tag team match was against the Young Bucks. and I was able to like watch a lot of his matches, see that, and there was a lot of things like he's extremely athletic.
You
The-
both are athletic, and you both can do some fancy stuff which no one else can do. And you guys have the similar style, but kind of same energy or athleticism.
Right. So it's easy to put that together. And Kevin Knight is someone who started wrestling in America, but really made his name in New Japan Pro Wrestling. So we both have kind of that international style of professional wrestling where we've borrowed elements from different regions and are now putting those together on the biggest stage in the world for pro wrestling.
Right. Speedball, I want to ask you, if Mike Bailey is not a pro wrestler, then what he would be?
I don't know. I have no idea. I feel like I've been into pro wrestling way too much to actually answer that question.
Okay.
But definitely something physical.
Mm-hmm.
Like I love martial arts, and I think I would have loved martial arts even if it wasn't for pro wrestling. But I feel like in order to figure out what I do outside of pro wrestling, you have to go way too far back, and then my life has changed, and I'm a different person. Again, I fell in love with pro wrestling at 7 years old, so it's hard to imagine what happened differently. God, 28 years ago, that made me not want to become a pro wrestler.
Okay. What's the best piece of advice you ever get? Could be related to professional wrestling or could be your personal life.
Having a pet monkey is like having a baby that will never grow up and can kill you.
Wow.
So no pet monkey. That's deep, right? No, but I think I owe a lot of my success in professional wrestling to my marriage.
Okay.
My wife, Veda Scott, was also a pro wrestler. Now they're more on the broadcasting side.
Mm-hmm.
But we started our relationship soon after I was banned from the US. And Veda is American. So I was living in Canada, not able to work in the US. She was living in the US, difficult to work in Canada. So a big part of traveling and going to Europe and Japan and everywhere else so much was that she was wrestling too. So if we spent 2 months in Europe, then we were able to live and work together for those 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
So in order for that relationship to work, we needed to travel so much. And that really kept me motivated to work a lot harder than I would have otherwise needed to. I think that it would have been easier for me to just spend all of those 5 years just in one place, in Japan or in Europe.
Right.
And that might have been something I wanted to do, but I don't think I would have been able to grow my name as much globally. And I don't think I would be where I am today if it hadn't been for Veda pushing me. And I don't think we worked very hard for our relationship to work.
Okay.
Right? Because being together logistically was incredibly difficult. But despite all the difficulties, even though we were not able to see each other for 2 months at a time, and then we're together for 1 month, being together was always the easiest thing to get in the world. Even being apart was extremely easy. And like, even though our relationship was extremely difficult, we always got along super well. We never fought, and we supported each other and gave each other strength. And I think the best piece of advice that I can give people is break up a lot.
Break up a lot.
Yep.
Oh.
Don't stay in a relationship where you're not happy. Don't stay with a partner that doesn't support you. Don't stay with a partner that doesn't tolerate your passions or share your passions. Find someone with whom being easy is someone with whom being together is easy, because the world is hard enough, and you should have someone who supports you.
Wow, that's a great piece of advice. And she's super nice. I remember like at some show, I was just standing somewhere and she came up to me and she's like, "Hey, how are you?" Speedball says hi and he was missing you and he was talking about you. I was like, "Oh, that's so sweet of you. Thank you so much for coming. If you need any help, let me know." But yeah, she's really nice, and having a amazing person in your corner can definitely change the game, definitely motivate you to do more and more in your career. Speedball, thank you so much for coming, and thank you so much doing this podcast and sharing your thoughts and experience with us. It means a lot to me.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
You're the best, and
No, you are.
no, you are. I'm trying to learn from you, bro.
Now I look forward to kicking you in the face in a few hours.
Oh my god. Yeah, we're gonna have a good match. Yes. Thank you again, and I wanna say, I wish you became what you wanna be, and all the positive vibes for you and for your family.
Thank you.
Thank you. ਸੋ ਦੋਸਤੋ ਇਹ ਸੀਗੇ ਮਾਈਕ ਬੇਲੀ ਸਪੀਡਬਾਲ। ਇਹ ਮੇਰੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਖਾਸ ਦੋਸਤ ਨੇ, ਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਇਸ ਪੋਡਕਾਸਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਕਰਕੇ ਮਜ਼ਾ ਆ ਗਿਆ। ਤੇ ਜਿਸ ਹਿਸਾਬ ਨਾਲ ਬੰਦਾ ਡਾਊਨ ਟੂ ਅਰਥ ਹੈ, ਐਡਾ ਵੱਡਾ ਰੈਸਲਰ ਹੈ, ਤੇ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਵੀ ਇੱਕ ਮੈਂ ਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਚੀਜ਼ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਹੈ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ। ਦੋਸਤੋ ਮੈਂ ਬਸ ਇੰਨਾ ਕਹਾਂਗਾ ਕਿ ਇਸੇ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਨਵੇਂ ਤੋਂ ਨਵੇਂ ਰੈਸਲਰ ਗੈਸਟ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਰਹਾਂਗਾ। ਬਸ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਪਿਆਰ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਆ, ਸਪੋਰਟ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਹੈ। ਸ਼ੇਅਰ ਕਰੋ, ਲਾਈਕ ਕਰੋ, ਕਮੈਂਟ ਕਰਕੇ ਦੱਸੋ ਅੱਗੇ ਹੋਰ ਕਿਹਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਈਏ। ਉਦੋਂ ਤੱਕ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ, ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਜੀ।